Hi, everybody. Isn't working as intended. Okay. Try this way. Everybody see my slide?
I can see it.
Okay, thanks, Candace. Great. See some thumbs up. Got a confirmation from Candace there. So thanks for joining us today. I'm Janine Rosa. I'm Senior Air Quality Specialist in Permitting at Northern Nevada Public Health Air Quality Management Division. So this is workshop number 4 we've done a few workshops on kind of the new regulations and what that means for the permitting community. So today we're going to be primarily focusing on applications. So Chapter 030 is the section of the regulations of interest to everyone. So we will be going over permit to construct for new or modifying existing sources, the permit to operate in that process, application processing, contents, and then a couple of maybe new and probably not super common, but probably a lot more common than in the past for us with public participation and best systems of control. So I believe everybody is muted. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat. And we'll do questions at the end. So because there's a chance I might answer your question as we go through the slides. So if you have questions as they come up, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll get to them all at the end of the presentation. Just sort of a kind of overhead view of the process. So prior to construction of any new source, any new emissions unit, a complete application for a permit to construct, previously known as authority to construct. So we've taken that language out. As you're going through our regulations, you will see PTC or permit to construct instead. This is something you should apply for well in advance of constructing any emissions unit. So you should have this issued prior to construction. So you should have your permit to construct before any equipment hits the ground. And this can take the Air Quality Management Division up to 180 days to process. So at the beginning stages of your conversations in planning is when you should get involved with air quality to determine, do I need a permit? Let me get the process started on that application. And so let's see. Once that's been issued, I'm going to get in more detail as we go. So once that's been issued, you have 18 months to begin construction. So as long as you're actively in construction within 18 months, then that's fine. You can continue to construct under that PTC, and you can operate under that PTC once you're fully operational. You'll have a compliance inspection once you are operational. And then a new part of this process will be you'll need to apply for the conversion of that permit to construct to a permit to operate. You can do this upon completion of construction, but no longer than 12 months after that initial startup. How do we know that? We now have a construction startup notification form, and we also have an initial startup notification form. So these will be requirements along your process so that we can start these timelines. Okay, so getting into the permit application, as a source that emits certain air pollutants, you have a duty to apply for a permit to construct and a permit to operate. That is in our regulations. We do have some exemptions or insignificant activities under section 030-200F. Other than that, you shall not commence with construction, modification, or operation of a source except in compliance with a permit to construct or permit to operate that authorizes that. see, newer modification, as I mentioned, should be received well in advance of construction. You want to have that permit to construct prior to construction. If not, you run the risk of potential stop work order or compliance or enforcement action. A renewal application, so an existing source that is either renewing, just renewing. So every 5 years, you'll have to actually apply for renewal now. That should come to us at least 180 days prior to expiration, but no sooner than 270 days. If you have a permit that expires on January 1st, 2026, you would have already received your first reminder in an email. So there'll be periodic reminders going out to all of our sources. So an important part of that is making sure we have good contacts for you. So if you have a permit with us, make sure you have accurate contact information with us. We're sending these out via email, and that's the primary way of we're contacting you for any reminders. Invoices and invoices and permits will still be mailed out as well as an email. So let's see. So for renewals, failure to submit a complete and timely application could result in the loss of authority to operate upon the expiration of that, and then you'll be treated like a new minor source and would require a full application. Okay, so first the permit to construct. Some of these are from some old workshops. I'm going to kind of like blast through them a little quick. So the assumption today is that you've determined you need a permit from us and what that process looks like. But just some overview here, permit to construct, it's issued by us. It allows the construction of a new source of air pollution or the modification of an existing source, and for a period of time its operation. The permit to construct expires and is invalid when the permittee does not commence construction within 18 months of issuance. So if after 18 months, there's no sign of like, no construction's happening yet, that will expire and you will have to reapply when that project actually, has a bit more traction. When you're complete with construction, and then if you cease construction, so if you're mid-construction and for whatever reason the funding ends and so construction halts for 18 months or longer, again, it will be expired, it will become invalid, and you'll have to reapply to get that project going again. It can expire after a year of initial startup, so you should have applied for your permit to operate by then so that you can transfer that into your permit to operate. And then upon the issuance of that permit to operate, it would expire, and then you would have a 5-year permit to operate. Okay, so bringing us to the permit to operate. So this is a document also issued by us. This allows for the operation of this new source of air pollution or the modification. This expires after 5 years now. The expired permit to operate, it can't be reauthorized or reinstated. A new application would be required. And it must be renewed every 5 years by filing a timely and complete application along with the appropriate fee. Timely and complete are all defined in our regulations. I'll show you that in a little bit. The timely filing of an application provides you with a permit shield. So in the event that we don't get your permit to you prior to the expiration, you are covered by that permit shield to operate. If your application is not timely, meaning it is not at least 180 days from your expiration, you run the risk of us being late getting that out to you and you, for a period of time, not having a valid permit to operate after your expiration date. So this is where, so in a permit to construct, because it's so early in the process, you may not actually know exact model numbers, or model numbers could change on certain equipment. And so the permit to operate is an opportunity to, now it's installed, I know the permit number, I know the serial number, and you can update all of that information. you should have an accurate idea of like capacity of equipment and the type of equipment that are coming in your permit to construct. So application processing. So like I mentioned before, we have up to 180 days after receiving a complete application to either issue or deny. See, we do an administrative completeness determination within 30 days of receiving your application. And I'm going to go over what a complete application looks like. And then we have 180 days to begin actually working on the application. So a complete application will go into the queue. It'll be processed in the order it was received. So there's no like priority. It's just the date we receive it. That's next in line. So then once it's up to be processed, we go through technical reviews. That's where one of our permit staff will be going through it and with a fine-tooth comb, looking at really the detailed calculations and everything you've submitted. During this time, they ask for further information. This is really a period of time where it can really extend your timeline, or your timeline can be super quick. If you provide a complete and thorough application, your permit will be issued likely much faster than one that's missing a lot of information or needs a lot of clarification. So, because what happens is if we ask for clarification, we're pausing the clock on that. So that doesn't count against us in our 180 days. So your turnaround time on getting that back to us is your best interest to get your permit more timely. Then again, that permit shield for an existing source for renewals, when it's timely and complete, then you are protected by that permit shield. So here's an example. This is straight from our regulations, and this is in 030-200 C2D. If you look here, so if, for example, a request for missing information is sent to you on day 40 of a 180-day processing period. The information is provided and determined on day 61. Then 21 days are added to that original 180-day due date of April 1st, making the new due date for us internally to April 22nd. Apologize, my animation is not doing what I wanted it to do there. I think it went over there. Okay, there we go. So some highlights from a complete application and what should be on your application. My biggest piece of advice is to read and follow the instructions on the application. They're pretty thorough. Refer also to our regulations, to chapter 030. I will take you to both these places in a moment and show you where all this information is. Actually, we'll just go there right now, but I think I'm going to have to. So this is our website, ourcleanair.com. And I think I need to share and unshare. Here. So this is our website. Under forms and applications, all of our forms can be found here. So stationary source, applications here. So likely, and there was a bullet point on the beginning of one of the slides. This is for minor source only. So any minor or synthetic minor source application. So if you're a minor or a synthetic minor, so this is the permit to construct application. This is the permit to operate application that you would use to convert your permit to construct to a permit to operate. We have a PTE emissions inventory spreadsheet here to use. And then we have different worksheets for different types of emissions units. that are helpful. And then these are some administrative application forms. I'm going to open up this permit to construct application. Maybe, there we go. Okay, you'll see here, zoom in a little for everybody. Detailed instructions, and then there's more at the end. So these are at the beginning, there's more at the end. Some common mishaps for complete applications is an appropriate responsible official signing the application. So this is defined here as, for a corporation, it's a president, a vice president in charge of principal business function, a corporate secretary, a treasurer, or an authorized representative of such a person who is responsible for the overall operation of the facility and designated in writing by an officer of the corporation and approved in advance. So we also have a form where a president can designate, say, like, you know, a plant manager, somebody on site to be their responsible official. But we need that documented. And when we ask for a signature from a responsible official on an application, it should be a wet original signature. So this needs to either be submitted to our Dropbox or mailed to us. So it can be and delivered to our Dropbox, which is here. This is also on our website. So if you ever have any questions, let's see. You can submit electronic versions of everything to AQMD permitting. So often if there's a lot of supplemental documentation, that's a great idea to send it all through the email. And then the application is the only thing we need like a wet signature on. So we just need that actual physical copy. Let's see. So the fee, the appropriate fee. So there's an intake and applicability determination fee. Open this link and that takes you to our fee table. So this is also on our website. This $15.16, that will be in the initial application intake fee. So that's okay. I'm submitting this application. It's $15.16. And then what will happen is once that permit to construct is set to be issued, the actual total fee is this $27.81. So it'd be $27.81 minus the $15.16 because you've already paid that towards your $27.81 of your actual issuance of your permit to construct. Let's see. I just want to go through the instructions on here. So confidential information. There is an application fee for that, application and a fee for that. So if you have proprietary information that you need to keep confidential, then we can store that to where it is not available online and it does not become public record. Otherwise, anything we have for a facility does become public record. So contact us if you have any other questions about that. It's not commonly used, but every once in a while it is necessary. So we also have this check sheet. If it is applicable to you, then you should check the appropriate box here. I'm going to open, I saw the link here for the regulations. So our regulations are, you can just go there from our homepage, rules and regs, and it takes you here to each chapter. Like I said, 030 is the chapter we're interested in. You can go to the part that you're looking for if you know which part you're looking for. Otherwise, we have a full version. And it is bookmarked. I was able to do this before, but now I can't. Okay. So it is bookmarked. I think if you download it, I apologize. I thought that, okay. But I do know kind of where I'm going here. 200 is page see. Can you see what you're seeing? Right, that's not working the way I wanted it to. Essentially, it has a more extensive list than this checklist here. I'll get into PTE in a moment as well. Basically check if these are applicable to you, and if it's not applicable to you, there should be any notes here, maybe why something is or is not applicable to you. Everything that's required must be completed. So like this up here says must be completed. This is an optional section. So your facility name should be your local facility. So say you're a company that operates somewhere else nationwide, but your local facility goes by a bit different name. So your facility name would be whatever you are locally. As a business owner, your NAICS or your SIC code, you know, what is your primary business? You can look these up online if you don't know them. Your facility address is your local, like where you're operating this source at. All of these boxes need to be filled out. Your operating schedule, hours a day, days a week, weeks per year, facility manager information. This section is if you are going to keep your records, say, at that corporate location elsewhere. We need to know that information right here, so 12 and 13. And then if you want a different on-site contact, you would put their information here. The legal company name. So this would be, oh, my parent company is, you know, XYZ Construction, whatever. Put the legal company name there. And then mailing address. Where do you want correspondence to go in regard to any permitting? Well, your copy of your permit to operate, say. Anything outside of billing. Do you want that to go to like a corporate address, or do you want it to go to the local address? Billing information, is there a different like accounts payable where we need to send any billing information? A responsible official, this has to be filled out. We need to know who ultimately is the responsible official. And again, that is defined in the regulation and at the top of the instructions here. You can have an agent, an authorized representative. You can designate that person here. By the control officer or by the responsible official. So that's where I was saying you could actually designate somebody else to be that person. If you have a consultant that you want us to be able to communicate with in regards to your permit, then you'll want to fill this section out with their information. We need a process description along with a flow diagram. Maybe you explain here your flow diagram. It doesn't have to fit in this box. You can use, you know, supplemental documents, but it needs to be, we need to have some sort of narrative on what your entire process is. So again, this is detailed instructions for each of these numbers on here. Instructions on how to get your Latin long, your APN, where to find your NAICS. Again, the responsible official information. So these are the types of things, anything that's required on here, these are the types of things we would potentially send back to you as an incomplete application. Going to share here. Because this I know is searchable and I can take you where I need to take you. Here we go. Complete application. So this very thorough tells you you must have a complete application. We have 30 days. Then again, that technical review breakdown, describing a permit application shield, application contents. So this is a representation of everything that's on the application that's required. And then some. If these things apply to you, BSC determination, I'll talk a little bit about that. So very detailed, pretty clear. If you have questions on any of this, you can contact us in regard to that. Yes. There, and then go back to here. Oh. Okay. All right. So potential to emit. This is the definition that's in our regulations. It's a common definition that's in, EPA definition. So maximum capacity of a source to emit pollutant under its physical and operational design. Any physical operation limitation on the capacity of the source to emit a pollutant, including air pollution control equipment, and restrictions on hours of operation or on the types or amounts of material combusted, stored, or processed shall be treated as part of its design, only if the limitation or the effect it would have on emissions is enforceable as a practical matter. Secondary emissions do not count in determining the potential to emit of a stationary source. So that's the legalese. In simple terms, each process is operated at, this is how it's calculated, is as if everything was operated at 100% of its design capacity. It's operated 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, which is 8,760 hours a year. With the exception of emergency engines, 500 hours is used, as they typically are only ran for emergencies, and they do have some limitations on them. So materials that emit the most air pollutants that are used 100% of the time. So we're going to take the worst case scenario of the materials that you use, depending on what type of facility you are. And it's no controls. So it's with air control equipment turned off. So there may be bottlenecks and permit conditions, local federal rules, compliance, enforcement documents that legally restrict the capacity of your facility, and that will be taken into account. But that's your potential to emit. So PTE is used because it's a consistent way for us to determine permit applicability across industries that typically only change if equipment is added or modified in such a way to expand capacity. Whereas actual emissions, those can fluctuate year to year due to the economy or other factors. So this little visual shows you, yeah, we understand your potential emissions is not a realistic way to operate. We get that. So there's kind of two parts to your calculations: your potential to emit, and that just determines what type of permit you're going to have. And then your actual emissions, or what are your requested allowables, we'll get into that in a minute. You'll need to calculate that. So based on actual operating hours, like I don't operate 24 hours a day. Okay, well, 5 days a week, maybe 2 shifts. So it's just a starting point for applicability, say. Let's see. So when you're calculating your potential to emit, you need to include all insignificant activities in the calculation. That list is found in 030-020B2. And then criteria pollutants, that includes precursors to ozone. So precursors to ozone are VOC and NOx. And HAPs should also be counted and calculated and included, even though they're not on here, as we don't have a permitted threshold for those. So these are the thresholds that I believe we discussed at the last, maybe not the last workshop number 2 on determining your applicability for permitting with us for a minor source permit. Again, minor source only. But then you'll determine your allowables. So this is based on your business practices, actual operations, like I said. This will become your emissions limit. And it'll also determine your fee, which I will just show you really quick. Back and share and share. Okay. So the fees for allowables are now no longer based on your actual, although they sort of are, because what we've done is we've taken your actual emissions for the last however many years and determine which of these categories you fall into. So everyone gets an annual maintenance fee. So you start off with $696. If you're in the category of less than 20 tons per year, it's $696 plus $260. And then the tiers go up from there. So 20 to 40 tons per year, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, 80 to 100. And you can see it gets more expensive as you are a bigger emitter. If you're also a HAP source, meaning you have the potential to emit 1 ton or greater of a hazardous air pollutant, and there's an EPA list of what those hazardous air pollutants are, then it's this $2,080 fee plus the annual maintenance fee for a hazardous air pollutant source of $208. We don't have a ton of those, but we do have a handful of those in Washoe County. So this may or may not apply to you. So that's why I say that affects your fee. So that's kind of a business decision as to the amount of flexibility you want in your operations, and the fee that will be a result of that. Okay. So a couple of uncommon occurrences are, so public participation. So for minor sources, after you get your application or after the permit to construct is complete, if you fall into any of these categories, you would have to go through public participation. So there's a notice of proposed action will be provided, and it's for any new minor source with the potential to emit any pollutant that exceeds the thresholds in this table. Any new source that's located within 1,000 feet of the outer boundary of a school, hospital, or residential area. We do consider daycares schools. So another tool that's really handy is the Washoe Regional Mapping System. And you can map your location on there. And I'm going to pull it up for you. And you can actually, there's a tool to measure your distance to a location. So let's see. Sorry about all the sharing and unsharing. I couldn't figure out a way to do a split screen on Teams. Seems you just have to do one. Let's see. So county is, where are we? Up here. So we can say, okay, how far are we from, go up here in tools, and I can measure the distance, and I can see how far I am from this location. Just pretend that was a daycare. So it tells me I'm 1,073 feet. So you may include this with your documentation as part of like your site plan. Like, this is my location, this is my fence line, this is their fence line. I am, you know, in excess of 1,000 square feet, or 1,000 feet. But you'll want to identify those, what we consider sensitive groups around your facility. So back to the PowerPoint here. Okay. And then the other ones are if a significant permit revision that is required because of a significant increase in an existing minor source's potential to emit. Those significant levels are determined in our regulations as well. And facilities, I will say, you'll be what we call a natural minor or a true minor, meaning at your full potential to emit, no controls, 100% capacity, 8760 a year, you are under a major threshold. So usually 100 tons a year for any criteria pollutant. Some facilities may be well over that. However, due to hours of operation or controls that they will have on their equipment, they come below that. So then they're considered a synthetic miner. And then they have operating conditions that require them to operate in such a manner that would keep them under that threshold. So those also have to go through the public comment period. During the public comment period, it's just we post it to our website, and it's posted to or email to our AQMD subscriber list, and as well as a press release from the public health. The public can request a hearing on those. It's not required, but if we do have to address all comments and concerns of the public in those. If you are in one of these categories, this is a conversation we'll have with you during the permitting process. Let's see. The best systems of control. So a new minor source or modification must apply this if their regulated pollutant has a PTE that's greater than any of these thresholds in this table. This slide, I think, was in workshop number 2. We are going to be coming out with some more detailed guidance on best systems of control, but the high level is right here. Essentially, for most businesses, there will be sort of an industry standard of the control equipment for that type of facility, but we will take into consideration energy and environmental impact and cost effectiveness, like I said, control technology used in similar sources, and the technical feasibility. This is another reason it's really good to get in touch with us way before you do construction. Because if this is a requirement of yours, you're going to want to know that, kind of make sure that your facility is designed as such to accommodate whatever the control is for your type of facility. Let's see. Must be determined. Shall be. I don't want to read the slide to you. You can read that. And like I said, we're coming out with more detailed information on best systems of control. Some other application revisions, modifications. So these are all outlined quite clearly in our regulations. One that we haven't had in the past that I want to highlight here is the change made with notice. And this will be on our application and forms page. Share again. So down here, this will be an administrative modification, change with notice. This is straight out of our regulations also. So these are the types of changes you can make with notice, meaning, see, it says the control officer will notify the facility upon receipt of the application, and the facility will be notified of any objections within 30 calendar days and after the receipt. So essentially, you want to get this to us 30 days prior to your even change with notice. So, so as if you're replacing an item of air pollution control equipment with an identical piece, same made, they make a model, then that's just an administrative change. If you're replacing an air pollution control equipment that's not identical but is very similar, maybe even better, you need to demonstrate that. So you may need to demonstrate or verify that through a performance test. You can demonstrate that in your application based on some engineering, but there may be performance tests required for that. If you're making a physical change in the change of operation that does not increase your potential to emit, so this would be a like kind replacement, so not control devices, but an actual emissions unit if it's like kind, same make and model, or if you're adding any of the insignificant activities that we, I said there's a whole list of insignificant activities. If you're adding one of those, that needs to be included in your PTE, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to revise your entire permit, but we do need to be notified because we do list insignificant activities on your permit. A change that amounts to reconstruction of the source or an individual emissions unit unless the reconstruction triggers a new applicable requirement. For purposes of this requirement, reconstruction of a source or an emissions unit shall be presumed if the fixed capital cost of the new component exceeds 50% of the fixed capital cost of a comparable entirely new source of or emission unit. So if you're doing some major reconstruction to an existing piece of equipment, essentially. And then the removal of emissions unit. So typically when you're removing something, it's not going to increase your potential to emit. So again, very detailed instructions, read everything, fill out all the required information, submit the appropriate fee. Let's see, does it have a link to the fee? There's, and then the fee on this one is the administrative amendment 319, which is the same as change with notice. I think we need to fix that. Anyways, okay. Back to slideshow. Okay. So our contact information, all here. It's on our website. It really is. Even if you've been working with like me, you've known for a long time, or Candace or Brandon, it's best to use the AQMD permitting. Somebody's always watching that. We do like to take vacations. Sometimes we're sick. So somebody will get back to you if you send it to that email. You have a better chance in the event that any of us are out. You can always call and ask to speak to somebody in permitting. Like I said, the rules and regulations are on our website. Please refer to those. That should maybe be like your first, if you have a question, go to the regulations first. It's likely in there. If it's not clear, we can certainly help you kind of clarify some of that for you. We have this handy thing now called bookings. And actually, I'll show you how to get there from our website. So from our homepage, you can get there going to source permitting. Right here at the top, click here to schedule an appointment with permitting staff. And it'll take you right here. So I've set it up for 30-minute virtual meetings. So that sort of helps, you know, with timing, travel, whatnot. It sets up a Teams meeting with any available permitting staff. I put a 10-minute buffer on here, so that's why sometimes they start at, you know, 10 after or 40 after the hour, so that we're not running from meeting to meeting. So you can make a meeting with us as soon as 24 hours from now, up to 2 weeks out. So as you'll see, it should have, well, I guess you can do it even further out. Let's see, but we can set this up, put your name. These are required because we need to know how to get a hold of you. This is also required. So just, okay, how do I get a permit? You can select something from here. You can select other and you can specify what that other is in the notes section. Let's see. Say no. If you do have a permit already, then please put your permit number. It just helps us to sort of prepare for that meeting. It will book it. You'll get an email. They'll get an email, and yeah, and then I believe you'll even get a reminder of that, and then we'll have a Teams meeting to discuss whatever it is. But yeah, provide any information you can to us that would be really helpful about what your appointment is going to be about. I'll come back to that page. And I believe that's the end, so I can open it up for any questions. I don't know if we have anything in the chat. I'll leave that there so everybody can get the contact information.
Janine, it looks like we have a question in the chat and in the Q&A.
Okay. Let's see. I'll go to the chat. It says, will we need to fill out a new application every 5 years? Yes. But the renewal application should be straightforward. So between you're issued a new permit, you're coming up to your renewal, you've maybe made modifications in that 5-year period. So when you're renewing at that time, you should just be submitting an application and saying, yep, everything's the same as it was. Now, the caveat to that is most of the facilities that are permitted currently are going to be requested to do a new application. If you've had a permit for a long time, you'll know that we haven't done this in the past. And so every year you just submit your annual emissions, we process your fee, you pay that, and then we basically issue you the same permit you've always had with a new 1-year expiration date on it. What we found is we are lacking a lot of data about facilities. So this is an opportunity for a facility to understand what their potential to emit is. It gives us a baseline for when you do any modifications going forward. So your first renewal through our new program will be a full application. You will need a full PTE, full flow diagram. Some of you may find through this process you might not need a permit anymore. Our threshold has gone from 2/3 of a ton a year to 5 tons a year. So we've tried to identify as many as we can and closed some permits. Some we just don't have enough information. And so that's why we're requesting, as you're going through this process, you need to know what your potential to emit is. It may work out that you do not need a permit from us, but we don't know that until we have the data. And if you have questions on that process, we're working on some tools to put out there for folks to use. Like I said, we are available through the bookings, and so we want to be really proactive and really helpful as you're going through this renewal process so that you can get in your application in a timely manner. So please reach out. Let's see. But then after the initial, 5 years down the road, you should be in pretty good shape. You should be able to just submit that and be like, oh yeah, my PTE is the exact same as it was before. So when is the emission calculation guidance expected to be available? Good question. Don't have a solid date on that. It'll probably be rolled out slowly per type of source. So sorry, I don't have a better answer on that. Implementation is a big beast, so we're moving as fast as we can on all of these things. Okay. Are there any other questions or anything else from permitting that I missed? I have a couple folks on here.
I think you captured everything, Janine.
Okay, great. There will be more workshops to come on, specific items. Let's see. Okay. Well, I will say too, always refer to our website for the most current application and most current fees. When we update those, that's, the kind of latest and greatest. Sometimes people hang on to an application from, the last time they did anything, and sometimes it's the wrong one, or they submit the wrong fee. And I guess as far as fees go, if you're sending a check in, that's great, as long as it comes with an application so we know what to apply the check to. If you want to pay with a credit card and pay after the fact, that needs to be done after we've received the application, because we need to actually assess that fee to your account, and then we'll send you an email with instructions on how to pay online. Yeah. These recordings will also be available online. I can show you that. Oh. Okay. I am zoomed in too much. Here we go. In public outreach. They're currently right now archived in here under announcements. So you see this one you could register for, but then that's the old recording and presentation slides. If anyone has any suggestions on a specific topic they would love to see a workshop on, please reach out. Happy to do that as well. On our website, trying to show you guys, let's see. This page currently has kind of some highlights from the regulations. That's a good resource, and we're trying to kind of update any resources that will be available online, you know, as we develop them. So. Okay, last call for questions, and then we'll let everyone get back to their day. All right, well, thanks everybody, and you have our contact information. If you have any questions that you maybe don't want to discuss in a public forum, that's fine. Contact us and we'll set up a call with you. Oh. Thanks, Tom. All right.